Hi, I'm Tim Vitale, and I'm going to be going over the second AP scenario with you, which includes feeling lost and intimidated. In this video, we're going to talk about the second AP scenario, feeling lost and intimidated, the feeling of everyone gets it, asking for help, and what available resources there are. So here's the scenario. I'll read it to you, but then you can go ahead and just pause the video when I'm done, and I want you to think about how you're going to assess how you got in your situation, what the teacher can do to help you, and where you go from here. So here's the scenario. I just sat through 42 minutes of AP class. I have no idea what the teacher is talking about. Everyone around me seems to get it, but I feel intimidated by the class. I don't even know enough to ask a question without sounding dumb. So go ahead and pause the video if you haven't already thought about what you're going to be doing for this. So, feeling lost or intimidated is a normal feeling. You might not have felt this before, especially if you're a freshman coming to a high school class, because the truth is, if you're properly placed in a class, it should be challenging, but it shouldn't be causing you so much stress and anxiety that you break down. There should be a happy middle between, you coming into class and feeling excited and feeling challenged, like you're not going to get everything immediately right when the teacher presents it. But at the same time, like I said, not going so far off the deep end where you literally cannot survive in the class to understand what's going on. But if it's just a general feeling of what's going on, or everyone around me seems to be getting it but I'm not getting it, that is a totally normal feeling. All right, so just start with that. If everything, I just said this, but basically, if everything was easy to understand, you wouldn't be challenged. If you sat in my class or another AP teacher's class and everything that was presented to you, you understood the first time, that would be incredible. And I don't think that that's realistic of any student who's seeing the course for the first time. So I, I wouldn't, I know some of you are really ambitious and you're like, well, that's a challenge. I'm going to understand everything. I just want you to know that it's normal to not understand it the first time. It's just about what you do afterwards. So it's not about avoiding that feeling. It's about what do you do when you're feeling it. So if you're lost or intimidated, there's a couple choices you have, and the wrong choice is to ignore that feeling or to feel like you're alone in that feeling and do nothing about it, because that will cause even more stress and anxiety, and then ultimately it might cause you to fail or at least not do as well as you could have done. So definitely don't ignore it, but here's what we're going to do if we're not ignoring it. Oh, the other thing I meant to tell you is it may seem like everyone gets it around you. You might be panicking on the inside and you look around your classmates and you see that they're just kind of nodding their head and writing things down. Remember, and just like you, I'm sure, not everyone gets it. It's just sometimes they fake it, or they're just they're in the same boat as you, right? They're just like, what's going on? I'm just going to write something down, or I'm just going to nod my head because I don't want other people to think I don't understand it. So, in the worst case scenario, a teacher's teaching, all the students are just like, okay, writing things down, yes, yes, yes. And now nobody knows, and the teacher thinks everybody knows. So that's a really big problem, and it's up to the teacher to kind of really check to see if you understand it. So it's not entirely your fault if the whole class doesn't understand it, but at the same time, you could help the teacher out by being like, hey, I don't understand what's going on. So asking for help. So number one thing, you need to ask for help. You can't just sit around and be like, it'll get better, because in most AP classes, it's not going to get better. It just gets worse and harder, or at least it builds on the previous stuff. Like in AP Physics, we lay a foundation of knowledge and then we have to build on that. And if you don't have that foundation, the rest of what we build is not going to work. So you need to assess why you feel the way that you do. So do you think that you are not getting it because maybe you were absent that one day? Maybe you've been secretly on your phone the whole time. Or maybe it's not something related to you. Maybe something happened at home and you've been just focused on that all day. Or maybe you feel like the teacher isn't explaining the content in a way that's easy to understand. Either way, and try to be honest with yourself. It's easy to blame other people, like your neighbor's distracting, or the teacher is awful. It's easy to blame other people, but try to be honest with yourself. Why do you feel this way? Do you think it's something that could be avoided or changed? And if it's not something that's obvious to you, or if you feel like it's something that's out of your control, check with your friends and other people. Actually, you can do this regardless and just be like, hey, do you actually understand what's going on right now? Depending on the class, in my class, for example, I would be okay with a student just kind of like being like, hey, do you know what's going on, like, without raising your hand? And if they didn't, if everyone's like, hey, we don't know what's going on, I would prefer the whole class to stop me than for me to just finish. You know what I mean? So always check with your friends and people in the class. If you don't have friends in the class, make some, because you're all in it together. That's my last video. But check with people, because they might be feeling the same way you are, and odds are they probably are. And if they're not, they can help you, right? Worst case scenario, if you're feeling embarrassed and they're like, yeah, we totally get this, then if they're your friend, they're going to help you to understand it, and then your problem is solved. If that doesn't solve your problem, then reach out to your teacher and explain how you feel. You should feel comfortable talking to any of your teachers. And I know that there are some teachers that maybe seem intimidating, or they're kind of mean sounding or looking. But part of being a high schooler and an adult when you get there is you need to stick up for yourself. And you also need to advocate for yourself. And so if you are struggling, it's your responsibility to step up and say, I need help. Sometimes the teachers are not going to be aware, or if by the time they find out, it might be too late. And the sooner you can address it, the better. So reach out to your teacher. Say, hey, this last lesson, I had no idea what was going on. Help me. Can you explain it in a different way? Can you show me some resources that I can use? So that's what I would do. And if you're feeling like you can't talk to your teacher, that's not really a good thing. That's going to set you up for not success. It's not going to be good for you. So you need to resolve that. And if you're really, really afraid of talking to your teacher, I would go back to number 2 and check with your friends. And maybe you can go with a friend together, because it might not be as bad as you think. I'm hoping, I'm speaking for other teachers, because I hope that all my students feel like they can talk to me. But, for teachers that may seem a little bit more sarcastic or intimidating, I hope that you can still go to talk to them, because that's important to have that communication. And ultimately, if you feel like you can't and you feel like you're struggling, there are other resources like the guidance department and everything. They can help you out. And then finally, there are some more resources that could help besides the teacher. I know a lot of people just go towards the teacher and say, help me, figure this out for me. And that's fine, because it's, part of this teacher's job. But there are other ways to get to where you're going. And to be honest with you, as an AP student, it's more beneficial for you. I mean, reach out to your teacher, but it's also beneficial for you to evaluate what resources you have, because you could probably do it on your own. And whatever you can do on your own or with friends is going to be more valuable than for some adult to swoop in and save you, like me or like your parents or something like that. So the goal here is for you to be an independent learner who can take care of themselves. That's part of being in an AP class. Let's take a look at what resources you have. So the first obvious resource is the textbook. I know a lot of students shy away from the textbook because, let's face it, no one really loves reading textbooks, at least not any students that I've ever met. I've talked to students, personally, I used to not assign readings from textbook. I found that when I did, students understood more, even though I avoided it, and I know that other of my students avoided it. So that's why I still assign it now. And on top of that, students that read the textbook admitted to me, they were like, yeah, you know what? I understand things better now. Of course, there are things in the textbook that they didn't understand still, but the point is that the textbook overall is a pretty positive thing, especially if you're reading it when it's assigned and you're keeping up with it. At Clearview, we have National Honor Society tutoring, which, and I'm not sure what that's going to look like for the COVID year, 2020, 2021, but at least normally we have tutoring where other students who have taken the class can help you and answer questions. They're like kind of older mentors that can help you out with any question you have in the class. There's also the option of private tutoring. Private tutoring, of course, typically costs money. So if that's something that your family can handle or wants to do, but it is a pretty viable option, especially for someone that's getting adjusted to AP classes. And obviously it's a one-on-one tutor, so they can just help you directly with anything that you need. Again, the only issue with private tutoring is just that it costs money. AP practice books. There are AP practice books that you can get online. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them in a bookstore like Barnes & Noble. They're relatively cheap. They go from anywhere from like $15 to $30, $40. And they're personal to you, so you keep them. It's not like a school thing, like you can get them elsewhere, but you can write all in them, you can highlight them, and they have little summaries of the units that you learn in an AP class, and they have practice tests and practice things. So it's a helpful little thing to have, especially if you're serious about taking the AP exam. So I would look at those. Some common companies that make them: the Princeton Review, 5 Steps to a 5, Barron's, I think. I'm naming the ones that I can remember. YouTube. You guys, I hope, should know this at this point. You guys are using YouTube probably every day. Khan Academy and Crash Course are 2 just examples, but if you just search in YouTube, AP World History, chapter this or whatever, if you search AP Physics 1, this, it'll come up and there'll be lots of videos that can help you. So, just searching YouTube and watching other people explain might help you better. If you're comfortable with other teachers, if you happen to know, like I know I taught some students, but some students knew Mr. Bauer, who's the other physics teacher, just from swimming, and so they would go and talk to him sometimes because they felt comfortable with him. That's just an option you have as well. And then, of course, friends and family that may have taken the course. I know I have some siblings that I'm teaching this year that might have had, some other classes. So it's just something that you can look into. There's a lot of options here. But just remember that when you're feeling lost and confused, you're not alone. Don't isolate yourself. Don't hold that feeling back. Tell somebody. Start with your friends. Start with your teacher. And then go from there. And we're all going to help you. We're going to get through it. But just realize that this might be a feeling that you're feeling soon. And it's okay.